Standing strong amid faith challenges. Welcome back. I am Adedamola Flourish Balami, your host on Omo Pastor Podcast. Today we're talking about standing strong when faith feels shaken. Because faith is not the absence of questions, it is the courage to stay while asking them. If you have ever doubted, if you have ever felt uncertain, if you have ever struggled or wondered, welcome. You are in good company. Remember, David questioned, Job questioned, even Thomas questioned, and Jesus asked why. So, asking questions or having some form of doubt is not disobedience. It is often a doorway to deeper truth. A faith that has never been questioned would just be a fragile one because when you question, you are seeking a deeper understanding. So, questioning helps you get into a deeper level of understanding or deeper level of relationship. However, faith that has been wrestled with becomes strong because it has answered certain questions that would have shaken it at some point. So sometimes what feels like we're losing faith is actually not that we're losing faith. It is rather that we're shedding fears. We're dropping the baggages and confronting life with the right questions and getting the right answer through the scriptures in the presence of God. And it helps us grow and have better understanding. So have it in mind that you are not betraying God by being honest when you ask questions. You are basically meeting him there. Because he said, come, let's reason together. In the process of reasoning, you are free to ask questions. So God is there waiting for you to come and reason with him. Here is the story of Mabel to help us buttress today's discussion. Mabel was in her mid-20s and she had a period of time where she asked questions. I'm going to read her story. She was working full-time when her faith began to feel unstable. Not because she stopped believing in God, but because the emotional framework that once held her faith together began to crack. And that was as a result of her mother's illness. Her prayers for her mother's recovery were not answered the way she expected. And a trusted church leader mishandled the situation, which mattered to her deeply, without even acknowledging the hurt that he has caused her. At work, Mabel experienced exhaustion, pressure, and the quiet sense of disillusionment that her prayer alone didn't even help her solve or give immediate relief for. Clinically, we could say that Mabel was experiencing what is called emotional and spiritual dissonance. The belief that once comforted her, the belief that once brought her peace would no longer sustain her. It was not supporting her lived experience. So her reality was different from what she had believed in the past. And this mismatch created confusion in her, it created sadness. Eventually, it led to emotional withdrawal from her spiritual practices, such that in the place of prayer, she didn't see a reason to pray. She could be in church, but she didn't see a reason to be there, and so on and so forth. She said, what shook my faith was not God. It was the gap between what I believed God would do and what actually happened. And she now said that what helped her rebuild her faith was not forcing belief, but allowing honesty. And at some point, she found her way back to praying. She found her way back to the presence of God. How did she do? She said she stopped suppressing her disappointment and she began to express it in prayers. She said in prayers, she told God that she was angry. She told him that she felt let down, she felt disappointed, and she told him that she didn't even understand why that happened. And she was surprised by what she found because her expectation was maybe she'll be rejected. But she didn't find rejection. She found presence. And she said after that, she started studying her Bible and scripture began to read differently to her.
She said when she read "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted," it felt real. It didn't feel like an abstract thing that she was reading again. She said when she read "Come to me, all who are weary," it felt like an invitation, not an instruction. And that when she read "My grace is sufficient for you," felt like permission for her to stop striving and struggling, even at work and over her mother's illness. And she also found a safe community, a few trusted friend who did not argue her doubt away, but they sat there with her. And slowly her nervous system began to settle. Her emotional defenses softened and her faith returned. Not as certainty, but as trust. She was able to rebuild her trust in God that He has the best plan for her. Mabel did not return to the version of faith that she had before after she asked questions, after she experienced doubt, after she experienced cracks in her initial belief. She returned to a deeper relationship with God because she found a safe community and because she found her way back to the presence of God, where she laid everything down and she expressed herself. All right? One shaped less by control and more surrender. That's what I'm saying. She returned to a relationship that was shaped less by control but more surrender, which means she surrendered more to God. She let go of her striving. She let go of her need to understand the nitty-gritty of what was happening, and she surrendered to God. And that relationship became just enough for her at that moment. That is the story of Mabel. So here's what I invite you to do this week based on this story. Write down your biggest question for God. Then write down what you know is true. Having been in God, having known God, having been introduced to God, there are certain truths that you have also been introduced to. So write down your biggest question at this moment, then write down what you know is true. Hold both of them and ask for your desire according to the will of God. Because God can handle both. God can handle the truth in His Word, and God can handle that question that is big in your heart. On this, we come to the end of another episode of our Pastor. I am still your host, Adedamola Flourish Balami. And remember, you don't lose faith by asking questions. You deepen it. And you are not alone in the deep. God is always there. Bye-bye.